Hi, everybody. Welcome back to JenTalks. This is my third attempt this week to record this video. So please, God, third time lucky. So welcome back, everybody. Just to say, today's talk is called Tools for When You're Not Okay. So my previous talk was it's okay to be not okay. And I was talking about how, instead of trying to paint on a smile, and pretending nothing's wrong, it's okay to just drop in and say, I'm not feeling okay. I'm not feeling okay at the moment, or at this month, or this week, or even this time in my life. And so I promised at that talk I'd talk about some of the tools that I've used myself personally, and that I've also used in my coaching practice, that I know work to help people when they're feeling that they're not okay. For when you get to the point where you've soothed some of your pain and you're ready to start coming out of it. So one of the first things I'm going to start with is, I suppose, there's two approaches. And the first is, what is the cause of the not okay, or what is the cause of the distress or the pain? So we've got different causes in life. We've got stress, a huge amount of acute stress going on at the moment where people are really suffering. And often the thing about stress is we don't actually know that we're stressed because we're so used to being stressed. So it's like we're just on this treadmill and we just don't know any other setting on the treadmill. And it's sometimes what happens is we might get a flu, or we might get a broken arm or something, and then we have to slow down and down tools, and it's then that it hits us that we've actually been suffering from stress. And that's when, I suppose, the darkness kicks in, because you actually don't know how to function. You're just so used to kind of, the stress is what's driving you, and all of a sudden that's been taken away. The other part, of course, is, depression, and depression can be like circumstantial. So I'm not talking about clinical depression where people have like either a chemical or a hormonal balance in their mind. I'm talking about circumstantial depression. What I mean by that is where life just gets too much, that the life throws you one thing after another, and it might just be that final little tipping point that pushes you over the edge. So the other thing that we have then is, of course, anxiety. And anxiety often creeps in at a time when we don't expect it. And we think, like, what is this anxiety from? There's nothing wrong with my life right now. And actually, it turns out that anxiety could be from something that happened even years ago, even in childbirth, even in pre-generations, but it's caused because we're in the stress response. So all of the above means that we need to do something to help us soothe our central nervous system. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I've talked about that on a few different talks as well. But one of the key things I want to talk about before we move into the exact tools is to say, and I say this to all my students and clients, you are the expert of you. So what works for me or doesn't work for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. I'm a huge believer in traditional Chinese medicine, where we listen to our own body. And, if we feel like we're a little bit more tired than usual, we rest a little bit more. If we're a little bit more hungry than usual, we eat a little bit more. We don't just go, we're not robots. The human body is an amazing development and an amazing creation, but it's so unique. Every single part of it is so unique, and every single day is so unique. So it's to slow down and listen to the body. What is the body craving? Is it craving like a banana for some reason? Maybe there's potassium and magnesium in that banana that we need. That's what the body's craving. Maybe we're craving sugar. Maybe there's different things that the body, like for example, the last few days I've been thinking I really have been craving mushrooms and chives. Now, I don't know why I'm craving them. It could just be that there's something in them, some supplement in them that my body knows that I need, that I don't have in my body at the moment. So I just go with it. I just say, okay, well, I'm in the supermarket next, pick up some mushrooms and some chives. So it's about listening to our body and feeding it what it needs. And that's not just on a consumption level, like what we're going to put into our bodies, but also what the body is actually calling for. So one of my favorite tools, and I suppose it's my favorite because it's the one non-negotiable that keeps us kind of on the straight and narrow, and helps us to survive and get through the times when we're not okay, is check-in. And check-in is a self-care tool that when we wake up in the morning, and it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning. For me, that's my best time. Again, it goes back to you being the expert of you. That we check in with ourselves. We just ask the question, how am I doing today? How are you, Jenny? How are you feeling? geez, I'm feeling a bit more tired than normal, or I'm feeling great, or I'm feeling starving, or I'm feeling like giddy. What is it that you're feeling? So here's the questions you need to ask yourself. How are you doing? What is it that you need? What is it that your body is calling for, your physical body? And what is it that your heart or your emotional health might need? Does it need a bit of soothing? Does it need a bit of quiet time? Most of us on a kind of treadmill where, particularly before COVID, we were just getting up at the same time, doing the same things, eating the same breakfast, going to the same job, coming home at the same time. And we do become robotic because the mind doesn't need to think for itself. Once we start repeating patterns, we move into habitual behavior where the mind is actually not thinking for itself, and those neural pathways die off. So we need to actually really just be present and ask the question, what is needed? So one of the things I'll say in the morning is, right, Jenny, how are you feeling today? What do you need? Are you in the mood for a bit of breath work? Usually I'll do breath work in the morning. It maybe sometimes I'll prefer a bit of meditation, and that could be like 5 minutes. So it's not a big long, with Tibetan monks for an hour. As much as I would love that, I don't have that time on my schedule, as do very few people. And well, I haven't decided that that's a priority to make time for me. I should really say, of course, I can find that time if I want to. And then mindfulness, is it a mindfulness activity? Could just be a mindful cup of tea or coffee in bed. That just really, that's one of my favorite ones. Tea and toast in the bed, just really waking up to the day, make a cup of tea, get back into bed, really kind of plan and just, I suppose, drop into the day. Not so much plan, but drop into the day and try and visualize the day as you want it to go, not as you fear it will go. So that's your check-in. So self-care, my definition of self-care, you probably heard it a few times now if you follow me on JenTalks, is asking what is needed and providing it. So it's the idea that what is it that you need today, Jenny, and then delivering on that. And even if it's something, say I'm craving, I don't know, a swim, it mightn't be feasible for me to get up and go for a swim because I have work to do and maybe school runs or anything like that. But I promise myself that as soon as it's possible, I'll organize that swim. So I'll schedule it. I'll say to myself, okay, Friday morning or Saturday morning or Sunday morning, I'll put something in the diary to say, well, that swim is on its way. And that's what self-care is. It's about tuning in, listening to yourself, asking what is needed right now, and meeting those demands, meeting those requirements. And then after we do our little self-care check-in, really good tool is set your intention for the day. So how would you like to feel? Intentions are very strong when it comes to emotions. So today I intend to be confident. Today I intend to be peaceful, calm, happy, joyful, kind, loving. Pick what you would like to be today. And that's very powerful if you're heading into a day that it might be difficult. So you're expecting to maybe face some conflict or some challenges. How would you like to be? Would you like to be grounded? Would you like to be focused? So think about your intention for the day. And then get up and do whatever it is that you need to do. And again, it goes back to what is it that you need as opposed to what everybody else needs. So of course, we have the generic things that make us feel better, that we know for sure, the power of the shower, that when we have a shower or even a bath, that we immerse ourselves in water, but particularly a shower, it releases endorphins in our brain. And we call it the power of the shower because it actually is proven to actually make you feel happier. Now, for me, as much as I know that scientifically, I'm a bath person. I have a bath in the mornings, which most people think is crazy, but I'm sure there's a few of you out there that watch that say, no, I'm the same, Jenny. So it's exactly what the point I'm making about, like, although we know the data is the shower is what's best, I feel better after a bath. I just love the slowness, and I put my aromatherapy oils in, and I'd have one of them, aromatherapy oil bath. Most of my baths, I would have aromatherapy oils in them when I have time to have a proper soak. So then it's about what else makes me feel great. Is eating like a breakfast roll on the way to work making me feel great, or is it making me feel rubbish? Maybe it's making you feel great. I mean, if you're starving, that might be what your body needs. Or if you're eating it and you're feeling like rubbish, well then, that's what's making you feel rubbish. But it's about slowing down and tuning into it. And then also giving yourself permission to return to your better self at your own pace. So most of us kind of go, okay, I've been a bit down in the dumps, I've been a bit low, I've been a bit depressed, I've been a bit stressed, or been a bit anxious, and now it's time for me to just return to normality. So it goes back to that point that I was talking about earlier on when we talked about removing the obstacle, like the cause of the stress or the anxiety or the depression. So if it's chronic stress, you have to look at what is causing the chronic stress from the point of view of if it's your employment, if it's a relationship, if it's, conflict. You have to look at that and see what you can do to remove yourself from it while you're recovering. Now, not all of us are in a position to maybe leave a job or get out of a conflict that we're involved in. But the idea is that if you take a step back and heal and recover, even if you're going back to the same environment because you don't have a choice or you feel that you don't have a choice, then when you're fully healed and whole, then you're more resilient and resourceful. But because you cannot return to that place until you are fully whole and healed and resources. Now, and I don't mean healed as in you're healed for life, because healing is an ongoing journey. There's no full stop after the word heal. It's all of our lives we're healing the same way all of our lives that we're growing. But what I mean is from this particular dip that you're going through, you make sure that you're fully healed, fully resourceful, and fully whole. And here's the way, if I was working with somebody and they're out of work, say with chronic stress, I'd say to them, when you get to the point where you feel, I cannot sit in this house any longer, I can't wait to get back to work, even if it's not that job, it's another job. That's when you're ready, and not a minute before, because a minute before that is only guilt that's driving you towards where it is you need to be at. And that emotion, guilt, is like rust that just rots away. I mean, it really is. If you think about rust in a car, how it destroys it, guilt can destroy our lives if we're not aware of it and we don't catch it. And one of the exercises I use in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, that I use in my coaching practice, is to accept the thought, to say, okay, I do feel guilty for not being back to work. But then you say to yourself, the rational mind has to then come in and say, okay, well, is it easier to feel a little bit of guilt, or for me to continue on the path of chronic stress and end up extremely ill, even to the point of possibly a breakdown? So which is easier for me to live with? Is it easier for me to live with ending up extremely ill or feeling a little bit guiltier? Because there's no point in saying don't feel guilty. That's like saying, like, don't look now. The first thing somebody does is look now. We if we feel guilty, our rational mind often just has to, I suppose, accept that guilt is a part of us because of our conditioning. We might be, people like us don't let people down. We're grafters, we're hard workers, we might be thinking about what other people think of us. So to just think about that from that point of view. Now, I'm conscious that it's up to 13 minutes. I can't believe that time has gone so quickly, and I've barely touched on the subjects that I want to speak about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to come back next week with a follow on from this. And also then the following week, I'm going to have a follow on for people who are in your life, or may have people in their lives that are struggling from time to time, and give them some tips and tools of how to support people that are going through some tougher times. And we're heading into a season, unfortunately, there's a dark season. We're in the winter to begin with, and then the stress and the pressure that Christmas brings for a lot of people can be very difficult. So that'll be really important to tune in. Next week will be follow on for more tips. And then the week after will be how we can support people in our lives, in the workplace, in our loved ones that may be going through some difficult times, or can go up and down through difficult times like we all do. Like what we do in that moment, what's best for us to do to support them, how we can best support them. So just to finish then, to say, what we do is we look at the cause of the problem. So circumstantial depression, where life is just giving you just too much of a heavy load. Stress, where is the stress being caused from, if we can identify it. And anxiety. And anxiety, like I said, is caused by an overactive central nervous system that's stuck in the stress response. So we need to reduce the stress response and move it back from stress into rest and digest. And the mind is always moving like a seesaw between the two. So stress, rest, stress, rest. And when we get chronic stress, or we get prolonged stress, or we get stress without a break, we end up getting caught in the stress response, and also trauma drives us into the stress response, to be stuck in the stress response. So have a look at previous videos around breath work in particular, dealing with stress, dealing with trauma. There's some tools in there in the meantime, but next week when I come back, I'll be giving you specific tools to help us, I suppose, overcome some of the obstacles that are presented to us when we end up in that position, when we're not okay and we're ready to move out of not being okay. We're ready to just I suppose, feel a little bit more like back to ourselves. We mightn't be quite 100% there, but we're ready to get back to ourselves. How I describe it is, sometimes when we're not okay, we're like below the ledge. And then when we start to kind of get to feel a little bit better, it's like we get up onto the ledge. And when we're on the ledge, then that's the point when we're ready for tools. Sometimes we can be so low that we're not even able for tools. And that all we can do in that moment, like I talked about on the last talk, is to go through it, to literally go through what you need to go through until you get to that ledge point. And when you get to the ledge point, that's when we're talking about tools. And then from there on, then that's your recovery journey back to healing, fully resourceful and whole. So I really hope that this went out okay for a start, because, well, as I said, I've been having some IT problems this week. This is my third attempt. And also that this was helpful, and that people can relate to what it is that I'm talking about. That you're not the only one out there that's struggling. Like, even when we look at people who look like their life is so fabulous and wonderful, we're all struggling. Everybody's like that swan gliding across the lake, but the little feet are paddling like mad underneath. Some of us are better at hiding it than others. So listen, goodbye for me for now, and I shall look forward to seeing you all next week. And thank you again for all your support. I really appreciate it. And take care, and God bless.